I'm Mel Stewart, and this is the SwimSwam podcast. Joining me is Coleman Hodges, SwimSwam's head of production and the man on deck. And today we have a very, very, very special guest, an Olympic star, one of my favorite swimmers, 3-time Olympic medalist, 12-time world championship medalist, Katie Hoff.
Hello.
Wow, you look fantastic. Look at you. I'm talking all over. I'm talking over you. While you're talking, I screwed it up already. You have the best setup. I just want to say you have the best setup. You're coming professional. You're delivering it. And I just want to say definitely top 1% on the podcast platform.
Wow. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I have to give credit to lighting is something I did not know anything about before this quarantine, and I've learned a lot about lighting. So thank you.
It shows. You can tell you've done your fair share of Zooms so far because your setup looks crisp.
It's just your swimmers you've done a lot with Swimmers for Change, correct?
I did Swimmers for Change. I started out doing the I Am Fit dryland webinars, done a lot of different interviews. So I can't give credit to myself. I have to give credit to my husband. Like the second I started doing that, he was like on Amazon, like looking for stuff and educated me in the world that is lighting. So
well, let's just put it on the table. You went outside of your swimming family and you married a football player.
I know.
Talk about it.
I know. And I always had such I won't lie, and he knows this, such a stereotype of you like football players, and he totally changed my perspective on football, and he knows more about swimming than I know about football. Let's just say that.
It's impressive.
Very.
So he's what you're saying is Todd has a swim nerd muscle.
He does. Yeah, very much so. So I was highly impressed.
It's good that he's not here because we would test that swim nerd muscle just to see how strong it is. But yeah, I'm surprised when a lot of folks come into our sport and they do know swimmers and they know the times, and that's a new phenomenon and it's new media, and frankly, it really is due in large part to this period of time where you rose to prominence. And it's because it was like 2004 to 2008 when we started to have these massive stars, and you'd go out to a restaurant or something, and people, you talk about swimming and they knew your name, which to me, for an old Olympian, that was weird. But yes, you, for a period of time, you became household, and you were a kid. Is that something that you anticipated? Were you surprised by it? How did that shoe fit?
It was definitely a surprise. I mean, let's be real. The reason I think a guy named Michael Phelps had a lot to do with when he was coming up and we were coming up at a relatively similar time. But yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I hadn't even thought about it that. Swimming really did. And I think part of it was social media started moving, and things were actually more online, but it was definitely not something I would say I was prepared for at 15, for sure.
It seemed like you handled it well. It was, I know personally, but here's the thing. We all have the same friends. It's, Bowman was, you were at North Baltimore. Bowman was an assistant coach to kids when I was swimming with David Marsh, when I was preparing for the Olympics years and years before, but everybody knows everybody. But I could feel the spotlight, the heat of the spotlight and it falling and that part of the world. And it was, yes, we lived in a Phelps oxygen atmosphere. Yeah. But here's the thing, you earned it. You have 21 international medals won, and you were coming on so very fast and winning at such a high level, breaking world records, breaking American records. It was, you earned your fame.
Well, thank you.
It was, I think, but unfairly, it was I think the network narrative labeled you the female Michael Phelps, And everybody in swimming was like, this is good. And then they heard that and they were like, that's not fair. That's just like a non-swimmer putting a label on somebody. And that's just not, it kind of didn't sit well with me.
Well, thank you. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, I think it's something that it just kind of happened. And now actually like looking back and preparing for, like, we'll talk about that later, but I have a book coming out and seeing how much it was all over the media. I don't think I even was fully aware at the time how many times it was said. And when it was said to me, of course it's an honor, right? Like, but at the same time, like to your point, it wasn't fair. I wasn't the best in the world at 8 events. Like I wasn't as dominant as Michael. And so, yeah, it definitely framed my story, my Olympics in a very specific way. And definitely not what I was putting out there. I was like, guys, 8 gold medals, all me, then that's on me. But I just wanted 1. That was not, certainly not what was in my thought process heading into Beijing.
But for someone who was a teenager, and I'm sure it was, I'm sure there was a lot. It was tense. But, you still were dominant and you still did perform. And, I think back to watching when you broke the American record in the 200 freestyle.
Yeah.
And you missed the podium. You were 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember looking at my spouse going, that was a freaking legit swim. That's an awesome swim for any swimmer on earth, anywhere going in America, breaking an American record. I was really excited about that swim, but I knew the context of what it was in 2008 too. And I felt like that was probably hard to process. It's like, how do you overcome that? Did that build a lot of character? That's the question I'm asking. There's a question there. How is your character? What did that do for your character?
Yeah, that's the silver lining of it all for sure. I think, and it's taken me a really long time, and I still have days where I'm not at peace with it. But yeah, I think looking back and looking at some of my performances, I'm like, wow, my first race was a half a second off the time that was the world record at trials. Like that was a really good swim for me. And it's funny, I was talking with Missy and Hayes on another thing last week, and we were talking about the medium maze, right? Like, which is like either like the best lap of victory ever after a race, or it's like the walk of death because you just get pounded with questions. And I remember after that 200 free, I don't even think I realized it was the American record because I was like, oh, I think that's the best time, but because it was more framed as, oh, what happened? And I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, like obviously I'm bummed. I want to win a medal for my country, but it's so interesting now looking back and being like, wow, like that was, maybe I could have framed it better. But yeah, I definitely had to do some soul searching after 2008 and really on through now. I mean, it took probably 5 years of me stepping away from the sport and just taking a breath and trying to kind of find my identity away from it before now I'm able to kind of come back and have passion again and be able to speak authentically and be vulnerable and all those things.
I'm gonna get off this topic after 30 more seconds, but just for our older listeners listening, they're gonna understand this term. For younger listeners, they might not, but to really epitomize what was happening. And this is probably an old school sports and frankly, misogynistic term. But each Olympics, the networks would pick what they called, it's almost like a casting, they would call it the media darling. And it was always a young woman. And the media machine would ramp up. And that's really and it's usually a huge position. It's almost like a movie's about to roll out and the media darling is going to be this person. And it was you. And it was an enormous amount of time and energy put behind that. And I'm wondering how that's going to work going forward, because it's an interesting thing. It sounds like a topic we would have to discuss later, maybe when you come back to talk about your book.
Yes, I would love that. Yeah. And I think to your point, one last thing on that is there is an enormous amount of work and production that goes behind that. I almost think there's a feeling sometimes, like I even had reporters come up to me where they're almost resentful towards me. Like, we said all these things and you didn't live up to them. Like, oh, like It's like a very weird dynamic. And now that I'm removed from it, I see it happen to other people in other sports, in our sport. And I'm always like, oh God, like I'm nervous for this person because it's a lot.
It is a lot. I'm backing off, Coleman.
Oh, so I'm just gonna throw it out there. You and Michael both swam 5 events at Beijing. Your events were way harder. Yeah, he had the 100 fly. He swam mostly 200s. You had, yeah. Anyway,
that was a lot. I think it was like 5,000 meters over the course of. It was, now looking back, I'm like, oh my, like I can't even like fathom doing that much. But it was, again, it was just something that it was just like, okay, well, these are the events that I'm good at, so like I'm gonna swim these events. And it just happened to be 400 IM and 800 free, and just like all the painful, terrible events that I just won the lottery to be, those were my best events. So
I just want to say this, Michael Phelps, he might listen to this episode, and if he does, I want him to know that Coleman Hodges was the one that called you out. It wasn't me, buddy. But if we want to, go apples to apples, it looks like she swam further at the Olympics, bud. She had it was a brutal lineup. We have a reason for bringing you on, and it's something that we're live with right now on SwimSwam.com, and it is SynergyDryland.com. This is your business. So is this a launch? Have you been in development for a while? Give us a little backstory about where you're at with your business.
Yeah, so I think the biggest push has been this quarantine. So if anyone asks me, what's your silver lining of this quarantine? I say Synergy Dryland. And it's always been something that, especially towards the end of my career when I was making my comeback for 16, which if I hadn't had a pulmonary embolism, I really think would have been a great testimonial to the training that my husband or boyfriend at the time was putting me through. And I think that moment in 2016, it was like, wow, like this is making such a positive impact. Like I dropped 2 seconds on my 100 breast, 3 seconds on my 200 breast, all from doing banded kettlebell swings that I'd never done before. It was just like this light bulb moment. And then I needed to kind of take my hiatus away from the sport. And as quarantine hit, I started doing with CG, I was doing these, I was like, you know what, instead of giving a speech, I want to give these kids something that, yes, I can tell them to be positive, I can tell them to control what they can control, but like I want to actually give them something that they can control. So I started doing these 2 times a week, called it I Am Fit, and I would literally just like sweat and toil away with these kids and start programming. And then it then moved into, now I have a group of individuals that subscribe with me. We give them a full program. And then as that started to develop, we're like, gosh, like we should be doing this for not just individuals, like we should be doing this for teams. And that was kind of like the whole progression. So this is truly a launch. We have, my husband's has worked with teams informally and worked one-on-one. But this is the official, true launch to really support teams and, make swimmers faster and feel empowered and not weighed down from things they're doing outside of the water, more strengthened from things they're doing outside of the water.
Okay, I'm going off topic just for 1 second. Sometimes when you get married and you're an Olympic star and your husband is a former elite athlete, they can cross over and they can swim. Can he swim? Is he a swimmer?
No. So he can.
That's the point. You can beat him.
I can. Yes. I could beat him hands down. I coached. He was going to do a 25-yard race with someone, and I coached him. I was like, okay, just don't breathe because you have terrible. Like you just like do this when you breathe. Just whatever you do, just hold your breath for 25 yards. It's fine. Just muscle it out. Like literally off the start, he breathes, runs into the wall, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm not helping you anymore. But no, that was pretty much his last experience in the pool. He's like,
Todd, your spouse is an Olympic star. Next time you need to listen to her. Probably need to listen to her in a lot of other areas. That's the secret sauce to marriage.
He's not here right now.
Drop it in there. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So you mentioned, he's a big part of this as well. Obviously he's not the best in the water, but it sounds like he understands swimmers and what they may need physically out of the water.
Yeah, I think that's really the cool part about the program is that I think it's very rare that you have, obviously you have my lens and my eyes of having been a swimmer, having been trained like a swimmer, times when it hasn't gone well, times when it has gone well. And then he has, a decade of experience and really dug very deep into the physiology, everything of swimming when I made my comeback. So I think, another silver lining of my comeback, even though it didn't happen because of my pulmonary embolism, was he learned so much about the sport. He did a ton of research, and then started training swimmers as well. So I feel like it's, sometimes I hate when people bring up like, oh, football. I'm like, yeah, he played football, but that's not just his knowledge base. He's very, skilled in understanding that swimming is a very unique sport in the fact that you're not dealing with gravity. So there's so many different ways to go about things. But you have to be very, I think, individualized when it comes to swimming. You can't train a swimmer like a football player, like a track athlete. Like it has to be very much customized.
You've brought this up a few times. You had to come back. Coleman was excited because he was on deck. That's when you first were on deck for us. Is that correct, Coleman? When you first starting out?
My first swim meet reporting, swim by myself, was the 2015 Orlando Pro Swim in February.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe that was one of your last meets.
Yeah, that was kind of my last, because after I went through the blood clots, I was still trying to make it work. They were telling me that my lung capacity was reduced, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I can just pull out 100. And it just kept not working. And that was ultimately, I think I saw an interview actually from that meet. I looked very sad, but very sad. But
yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, it was just something I was just trying to see if I could still pull it out. But having scar tissue buildup in your lungs is not ideal for 200s.
Your fan base was there though, and we were seeing signs of progression. We're like, okay, she's back. She's progressing. Somebody who understands how to be that dominant on the world stage is be afraid. And it was hard when that was cut short because of what you experienced. And it's so how has it affected you in your swimmer life? Are you okay?
Yeah. So the thing that, the doctors are very clear about, they're like, look, 2 or 3 years is probably about how long it'll take to have everything clear out. So it was pretty true to that for about 2-3 years, like even, when I would really push it, cause I still work out, 5 days a week. I, do cycling. I try to run. I do strength training. I do HIIT. And I could take a deep breath and feel like a twinge, and I could feel it there. So it was only if again, we're talking about like, oh, I can't sprint a 200 freestyle at, world class. So like doing just like a basic 45-minute group fitness class, like I was okay. But I definitely, when I did push it to the limit, I could feel it. Now I'm good. I'm not planning on getting back and making a comeback, but I think, if I got back in the water, I really do feel like the scar tissue has been cleared out. It's all good. I don't, have blood clots or anything like that. So
I think having an extraordinary career and then coming back to the sport and giving back with the synergydryland.com is something that's probably, you're going to find more joy with this than you will during your career. There's something beautiful about it. And it's so on that topic, if I'm a club team and I want to sign up, what do I do? How do I do this? How do I get on your program?
Yeah, so we've already had actually a couple teams that we've gotten on. They've emailed us. So my email is just katie@synergydryland.com. And we set up a Zoom call. So my husband and I get on. We really just run through, okay, how many swimmers, what are the ages, what equipment do you have, if any, because we can work with that too. What does your schedule look like right now with like the pandemic and having to schedule out people, and just really getting an idea. And then we go from there of kind of valuing what that all means. The cool thing, we don't have like a set price because every single team, it seems like right now, is vastly different. And that's something that we really want to make sure that we're accommodating. That kind of was like the brainchild of all of this, is like, it's really hard to just be like, okay, here's what it is, go. You know, we want to make sure that we're checking in monthly, adapting, adjusting as needed. And you know, really helping these teams make sure that the coaches can have their focus in the water, and not having to worry about making sure that they're juggling recruiting. And like, I feel like swim coaches have like 17 different jobs, and it's almost unfair sometimes.
Coleman, is your mic turned up?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you hear him, Katie?
I can hear him, yeah.
Okay, cool. It was very low. Is my mic low?
No,
so.
Great.
I'm yelling into the mic.
Oh.
What fascinates me about dryland training is everybody has their own little secret weapon. I'm sure that it evolved between the time of when you were in North Baltimore, when you were with Paul, to working with your husband. You know, what is the difference? Well, you know, what is the new evolution? If I'm a young swimmer today, I'm a coach, and I want to make gains in dry land. You know, what's something that really can help you out?
Yeah, you know, I think for a long time, and I still see it out there, but it's like, you know, doing a exercise that's going to enhance the stroke doesn't have to mimic the exercise on land. So I see a lot of people doing like, you know, like, and doing bands and stuff is great, but, you know, just doing things like holding a streamline and kicking breaststroke, or like, you know, it's weird. It doesn't translate like that. And that's why I'm so fortunate that, I mean, Todd truly opened my eyes, because that's kind of what I thought. Now things like squat jumps and kettlebell swings, and basic movements too, like doing a goblet squat has a lot of benefit. And I think sometimes coaches like to get kind of fancy. And I even caught myself doing that when I was initially programming, thinking it has to be like this mimic of a stroke, but it doesn't. It just has to be explosive. It has to make sure that you're not going to injure yourself, so not weighting things and going super heavy. And then it just has to really complement that specific stroke or that specific distance. Because that's something too, like sprinters don't need to be doing the same thing as someone who's training for the 800 or even the 400.
Coleman, do you know what a goblet squat is?
I don't. I was wondering the same thing.
So so the benefit of that, I did a lot of those towards the end, instead of like, you know, a back squat. Obviously, you know, swimmers put so much stress on their lower back with, you know, doing this constantly. And so it's really holding like either a kettlebell or a weight, and just holding it here. So really working on like the form, but it's just managing like the risk versus the reward. Like, I think the times I've had my like best, like maxing out in the weight room wasn't necessarily the times I was swimming the fastest. And you look at someone like even Caleb Dressel, like he's jumping athletically and doing like these crazy box jumps. That's not something where you have to like load people up and just completely crush people in the weight room. That's definitely not what it's about. And it should always be that the land part is enhancing the water part, and not, sometimes I think that they're like this. And just because I can do, you know, a 150-pound power clean doesn't necessarily mean that's translating to a best time in the 200 freestyle.
I'm sorry. Do you still talk with Paul? Are you guys still in touch?
We haven't in a while. We talked a few years ago. We both got inducted to the Maryland Swimming Hall of Fame. But I know he's doing his thing at North Baltimore. But yeah, we haven't kept in touch as much.
You know what? I talked to my coach this morning, and he's an unusual guy. It just made me think of Paul. Paul's an unusual person. He sees the world in a different way. And
yeah.
Kind of wondering if that shaped your mind in a different way, and if that's gonna, you know, what does that mean with synergydryland.com? It's like, because he did see things differently. I think he was more creative than your average coach, than most coaches.
I would agree. Yeah. And I think when I talk about the times that, especially as a high school athlete, we didn't get loaded up on dryland. We did a lot more explosive things, more basic things that I didn't feel like were negatively affecting me. I think they were only enhancing. So I agree. I think that, you know, that's definitely more on what we're looking to do with athletes. And, you know, my husband is definitely the brains behind it. I definitely rely on him to come up with things and, you know, really put together a program also on load management. So I think something that is unique is that we can really take a look at the season and look at the overall blueprint of a season and have it actually correlate with, okay, so you're in your high volume months right now, so let's make sure that makes sense with what you're doing on land. Okay, now you're doing maybe more some speed and some race quality work. Okay, let's have that match to that, instead of having there be this disjoint, separation when they should be working hand in hand.
Coleman, are you jumping in here, or do I get
Yeah.
to take this interview to the very
So I think it's also interesting because I'm guessing you might have had a few different dryland philosophies throughout your swimming career, because your career was also not traditional in terms of, you were at you went to a lot of different places, and you didn't just go swim for college after high school, right? You were in North Baltimore, you were in Florida, you were in California. Did any of those drylands kind of affect the way you were looking at dryland before Todd, or kind of the ideas that you're developing now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, it's hard for me to view, like, an NBAC, I think I was more of just a robot, so I just kind of did what I was told. And then I do think at that point, my dryland was humming. I was ripping off 3 sets of 12 pull-ups. My upper body strength was strong. It was very much hand in hand and enhancing what we were doing. Obviously, that's the time I was swimming the fastest. I think, other programs like, when I went to California, we had a great strength training, but, my legs were getting big. Like I was doing a lot of lifting. And not to say that, strength training is something that we incorporate into Synergy, but I just always felt weighed down. I feel like there was a piano on my back, pulling and having a little lower body was always a benefit to me as a swimmer. That's why I said, like, I was doing, pull-ups with 45 pounds on my back, and I was not swimming my fastest. So I think that's kind of where, like, the light bulb went off at some point for me, where it was like, okay, I'm super strong, but, like, am I trying to be a weightlifter, or am I trying to be an Olympic swimmer? And that's something that I think evolved throughout my career, where I just noticed the difference of how I was feeling and the connection from what the exercises that I just did to getting in the pool, and that really distinct connection or disconnection.
Okay, I have one more question. I think I was talking with Kara one time. You were really good at pulling, right?
Oh, we are like battle royale on pulling. Like Kara and I could throw down some crazy stuff. Yeah.
I think she told me.
So do people now.
What?
Useful names. Carolyn Joyce.
Oh,
Carolyn
so, yeah,
Joyce.
so I think Carolyn Joyce one time told me about a set you guys were doing at an Olympic training camp.
Is this the 10-200s?
Yeah. Would you mind telling that story?
Yeah, we always talk about this. So yeah, we were at Stanford Palo Alto camp before 2008. And we had, just from other camps, like we both were very aware that the other one was really good at pulling. So we always wanted to go next to each other. And we were doing 10-200s, and I think it was descend by 4, 3, 2, 1. And we started off at like aggressive, like 210, 209, just to start the descent. I was like, this is bad. But of course, like we were like just every single 200 battling. And then I think we got down to, I think the final one was like 201 or 202. Like, I think like I remember saying like, wow, we just got an Olympic trials cut pulling at the end of 10-200s. And we were both very by the book. There's people who, get a little kick action in there, but we were both like straight as a board. I made sure I was watching her and she was watching me, and there was no cheating there. So yeah.
That's insane. You're pushing off the wall.
Yeah.
No.
It was fun. I always had a great time when we were, and even at FAST when we were training together, we would always just battle it out with pull sets. I was a big fan.
We report a lot about, from time to time, or at least we have fun with it, about Katie beating people in practice, Katie Ledecky beating people in practice or being at training camps, and guys quietly slipping away from the lane. Did you? I know. Just hearing that set. Thank God for Coleman for bringing that set up. It sounds like you had a similar experience throughout your career.
I mean, some of the Katie sets I hear about are insane. But yeah, I definitely, I feel like women are actually kind of lucky in that way, where you're always going to have a guy that's just that much ahead of you, which sucks, but like it also helps you train really, really well. So I mean, I was always trying to, catch the guys or beat the guys. I felt like, 17, 18 was probably the height of it. And then I kind of felt them slipping away because I was trained with pretty good guys. But yeah, oh my gosh, like that was like the ultimate kill. If you could like finish the set and like, know, like, okay, like I, I kicked your butt on that set and I know you feel real bad about it.
Thank you for going there. That was the answer we were looking for. We wanted to hear the truth. The answer is yes, I got you.
Yeah, of course. Especially if like they were like, I mean, I was always getting teased. So that was like the only way I could truly get back at them was like, all right, well, I'm just going to get really angry that you just, mess with me. So I'm just going to beat you now. Like that was the only way I could get back at them because I'm not good at comebacks. I'm just not.
You got any more hidden gems in your back pocket, Coleman?
I think that was what I was really curious about. That's one of my favorite parts of swimming as a reporter is hearing, because everyone who swims isn't the best swimmer, but you get a lot of swimmers or you get a lot of elite swimmers and some of them are just freakishly good at something like kicking or pulling. And like, obviously you were an amazing swimmer, but hearing about like what some people can do in practice, it's always just.
Have you ever talked to Felicia Lee about her kick times?
No,
I haven't.
Oh, she would kick like even from the age of like 14. So like she would, I think her best 50-yard kick time was like 27 or 28. Like it was like she would crush guys. Like she would go to training camp like with, I don't know, any national teamer, and she would absolutely destroy in kicking. Like to this day, I'm like, Felicia, if there was a, world championships or Olympics, you would have like 10 gold medals, hands down. So I would ask her about that if you ever get the chance.
That's awesome. We need to have Felicia Lee on.
we got to have her on just to talk about it. And yeah, it's like, yeah, that's
good. It would
good.
drive me up a wall because I was like an average kicker. And, we'd go from pole and then I'd be like, I would always want to do backstroke kick against her. And even then I couldn't beat her. So drove me a little bit nuts, but it's okay.
We're down to 5 minutes. And we had Olympic star Katie Hoff on to talk about her new company, SynergyDryland.com, SynergyDryland.com. And we want you to go there and check it out. And you can go there and you can find her, Katie's email. You can reach out to her directly, find out more information. We are under 5 minutes. So as a debrief, is there anything going on in your life that is not business, not swim, that's making you happy? Because it's been a tough period of time.
This has been a tough period of time. I mean, my little French bulldog, which I'm like hoping that you didn't hear her snorts, always makes me happy. I think, I don't know if this is business related, but I finished a book. So that was really, really exciting. Something that I wanted to do. I mean, really since I finished my swimming career, but again, I didn't have the courage or the vulnerability quite yet to really tell my story. And I think, this quarantine has just allowed me to really focus on it, partner with a ghostwriter. And yeah, it's in editing and it's coming out in end of November. So that's been my silver lining, I think, of quarantine, is just being able to get that done and get that out there. So I'm very proud of it.
Hold on a second. I know something that you've done that's made me happy. You have the best TikTok game.
Oh God! Oh God!
I can't believe you didn't bring this up before.
Did you see my husband drop me?
No.
So he got 3 million views on his TikTok. I did it and got like nothing because I didn't like the algorithms. I don't know. But yeah, we did the koala challenge, which is on there. And then I was just like feeling like, yes, I got it, kind of, not that coordinated. Like, why don't we there's a fitness couple we follow, and they're like, why don't we do like a clean, like you clean me? And he's like, let's do it. He literally dropped me on my head, like you can hear it. And like, we did it, like, it's on both of our TikToks. And I hit my head on our wood floor. It's like a mess. We didn't want to post it for a while. And then I was like, whatever, I'm fine now. but yeah, that's like, TikTok's been fun, but that was our TikTok blooper.
Oh my gosh. My favorite by far was the Super Smash Brothers when you do all the different swimmers.
Yeah.
That was it was just pure genius. Because
some people were like, wow, you changed into your suit and put your cap and goggles on, like you're such a loser. I'm like, what else are you doing right now? Like, let's be real. So I feel like that feels like so long ago, like March and April, my TikTok game was on point, and now I've kind of faded, but I need to get back to it before it gets taken off the internet.
We're down. Okay. Are you coming in, Coleman?
No, go ahead.
No, okay. Yeah, we're down under 2 minutes. We're talking to Katie Hoff, Olympic star, about her new company, SynergyDryland.com. And she has leaked out that she completed a book during the COVID shutdown. So if you were lazy and did nothing, you can hate yourself a little bit more, because Katie was like, hey, I'm gonna finish my book. We're gonna have her back on to talk about the book, and we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of that. We're gonna put out a release, and we're gonna let everybody know exactly where to buy it. But we're running down our seconds. Are there any parting thoughts that you have for us? Anything you would like to say that we didn't cover?
No, I just think that I'm really, really excited about this launch. It's something that I feel very passionate about, because I think it really affected me in a positive way when I had a great program, and I'm just excited to support everybody and meet new people and make a positive impact.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.